we want to look at Mounce 6.10 here, and it's the issue of word order. If you look at what Mounce gives you in these examples, you'll notice that these four sentences all have the identical words, but just in different orders. Theos agapa tan kasman. For the first one, agapa tan kasman theos theos agapa theos tan kasman. What do those sentences mean? God loves the world. God loves the world. All four of them say the same thing, but they are different forms of the sentence, aren't they? Simply based on the variation in word order. So the word order in Greek is, I'm going to use the word flexible. It is not entirely free. There are certain requirements that words do have to, some words have to go together, like articles have to accompany their nouns and such like. And prepositions always have objects of the preposition that have to go after them. So you can't put an object of the preposition in front. But for the most part, when it comes to subjects versus direct objects and verb placement, you can put them in any order, and the case endings are going to save your neck, okay? So the case endings become all important because it's the case endings that determine the function, okay? So if you don't know your case endings, guess what? Your goose is cooked. All right, so do pay attention to this, and really, I really want to encourage you to commit these case endings to memory because you really can't read or learn Greek without them. Now, under 6.11, Mounce discusses with us the matter of lexical forms. We want to make sure that you understand what this means. What is a lexical form? Who wants to tackle that? Okay, good. So a lexical form is the form of the word that you would find in the lexicon. That is to say, it's what we might consider to be the most basic form of the word, and it's the one that you need to know really to learn your vocabulary. Which form of the noun is always going to be the lexical form? Nominative singular. Very good. So it's the dictionary form. And for nouns, it's always the nominative singular. Okay? What gender will it be? Exactly. It'll be whichever gender the noun actually is. So it could be any of the three. Okay, that's why we can't say which gender, right? But it's always the nominative singular form in that gender for the noun. The word lexicon, by the way, I put dictionary form here. But Mounce uses the word lexicon. The word lexicon simply is a fancy schmancy way of referring to a dictionary for a particular body of literature. So if your body of literature is the Greek New Testament, and you had a dictionary of all the words that occur in the Greek New Testament, then we would call that a lexicon of the Greek New Testament. If you had an Old Testament Hebrew dictionary, then that would be a lexicon of the Old Testament. You could have a lexicon of Shakespeare. Take all Shakespeare's works, put all the words in a lexicon, boom, you've got a lexicon of Shakespeare, okay? So because lexicon is the technical term, the form that creates the entry is the lexical form. You are going to be learning how to parse words, and what that simply means is identify the grammatical information of a word that occurs in a sentence. And one of the things that you'll have to do is to work your way back to the lexical form. And of course, if it's one of your vocab words, you should know it because you've memorized the lexical form anyway. So do commit the lexical form to memory. Okay, so on this handout, what I've given you is a layout of how we're going to structure the case endings that you're going to learn. In the middle are missing the things that you're going to be working through in Chapter 7. So the nominative and accusative are actually the outer ones here. I honestly don't prefer this about Mounce's textbook. I wish Mounce would just give you all 4 in one chapter. That, if I had my druthers, that's what I'd do. Okay, but he didn't ask my opinion when he wrote this book, and so I just got to live with it. Anyhow, here we go. So the case endings here are laid out in terms of gender. So the columns are masculine, feminine, neuter. Remember, feminine nouns are typically first declension. Masculine and neuters are second declension. That means that the stem will end with what if it's masculine? Omicron. So it's going to be omicron plus whatever the case ending. Feminine, it's going to be alpha or eta and then a case ending. Neuter, omicron plus a case ending. So we're going to be accustomed to seeing that. Now, here's what a lot of people who teach first year Greek do, is they teach you both of these. Os, a and alpha for the feminine, and on for the neuter. And you're basically taught the case endings as if the case endings constituted the vowel plus the case ending. I really want to disabuse you of that. And this is one of the reasons why I do like Mounce, is Mounce really does go to great pains to help you see that these are really the only parts that make up the case ending itself. The stem vowels, they are actually part of the noun's stem, not the case ending, but they're useful because they do tell you the gender for the most part, okay, since they tend to pattern along these ways. Okay, so we have a sigma for the nominative singular case ending if it's masculine, nu if it's accusative, singular. Over here, if it's masculine, the nominative plural will be the stem plus iota. And if it's accusative plural, it'll be the stem plus us. So if we had logos, you just take loga and plug in those case endings. Logos, logon, logoi, logus. Okay? So you're going to have a diphthong there, aren't you? Because you're going to have an omicron followed by an upsilon. That forms a diphthong. Okay. For the feminine, actually here, let's go to the neuter. The neuter nominative and accusative singulars are identical to each other, nu and nu. So, ergon is the word for work. Its stem is erga, so it would be ergon, ergon for the nominative and accusative neuter. Now, over here for the nominative and accusative plural of neuter nouns, Mounce will put an alpha here, and he underlines it. There's a reason for that, okay? Here's what you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to expect to see an underscore under your case ending alpha here. It won't happen in the real Greek language. This is an artificial little signal that he's given you to tell you that when you add the accusative plural case endings in the nominative and accusative case, the alpha is going to swallow up the omicron stem, okay? So it's going to end up being erga, and it will obscure the noun's omicron stem that makes it a second declension form, okay? When we get to the genitive plural, we'll see something similar happens with the genitive plural. All right? And then finally, the first declension feminine nouns are zero ending, no ending for the nominative singular, nu for the accusative singular, iota for the nominative plural, and just a plain old sigma for the accusative plural. So if we took a word like hora, which means hour or time, what would our forms be? Nominative would be hora, accusative, horon, nominative plural, horai, and accusative plural, horas. Okay? Now, what's going to be my problem here with our chart? Well, the nu is the same. This is either a problem or a blessing, isn't it? The nu is the same for all the genders in first and second declension in the accusative singular. That's actually nice. That'll at least tell you it's accusative singular. Okay? But there's one problem with that. nominative forms in the neuter are also going to have a new case ending. So, just because you see a new at the end of a word doesn't mean it has to be accusative singular, does it? It could be a neuter word. And then you've got to ask yourself, well, can my context help me disambiguate that? What's another problem? I have a sigma that marks a second declension masculine noun as nominative singular, but that same sigma does what? It marks a feminine first declension noun as accusative plural. So what am I going to be looking for before the sigma to know? You look for that stem vowel. If you have an omicron before the sigma, is it a first declension feminine accusative plural? No, because that's going to have an alpha or an eta. You see? So knowing those stem vowels is going to be critically important here. All right. So let's just take a look at all these words that we've talked about, and let's at least recite them together. Okay? Mounce really likes to encourage you to read your declension charts from left to right. I have never gotten used to doing that. I'm a top to bottom kind of person, so that's the way I'm going to do it, notwithstanding his suggestion. Okay? So everybody, ha logos, ton logon. So notice I have ha for the article, masculine nominative singular, ton for the accusative singular and masculine form. What do you notice about both of these forms of the article? The omicron. Yes. What does that tell you about the forms it's going to follow? What declension pattern does it follow? Second declension. That's right. Second declension. Good. And then for the plural forms, everybody, hoi logoi and tous logus. So notice again that my article has an omicron and the case ending. Omicron, case ending. So there's some slight variations here in terms of how it starts, but no matter, it's still going to, for the most part, match the case endings of the noun too. So one of the things that I'm going to encourage you to do is to memorize all the forms of the article and all the cases. You really want to learn those like the back of your hand. If you will do that, if you will always know the form of your article and know what case, gender, and number it is, it's going to help you when you come to a noun that follows some weird patterns, because there are some that do, and you may not know what gender and number or case it is, but the article that may accompany it will still be normal looking, okay? The article is always true to its case, gender, and number. And I like to say, and I'll say it over and over again, the article will be your friend. The article is your friend here in the Greek language. All right, let's look at the feminine forms real quickly. He graphe, he hora. Accusative singular, tein graphein, tein horan. Notice that my article, he and tein, both have what stem vowel? They have the eta, and that tells me it's feminine and first declension. And then the plural forms, everybody, hi graphai, hi horai, alpha, alpha. Okay, so notice here, I still have the alpha or eta as my stem vowel, the nominative plural as the iota, and it does the same for these. Okay, and then tas graphas and tas horas. So there's the accusative plural. So notice that looks like it could be a masculine nominative singular sigma, doesn't it? But if you look before it, you've got an alpha. That tells you it's not masculine or second declension. It's first declension. So what did you notice happened here with the word graphe? It has a stem eta here, and here, what happened to the eta when we got to the plural? It switched to alpha, okay? And this is what happens with first declension nouns. So first declension nouns that have an eta stem, they will always switch to alpha in their plural forms. Look at hora. It starts in the singular with an alpha stem, and it stays alpha when it gets to the plural. So no matter where you start, whether you start with an eta or an alpha stem, all of them go to alpha in the plural side. Okay? And we'll see a lot more examples of that as we go on. Okay, and then the neuter forms. Ta ergon and ta ergon. So they look the same, don't they? This is great, or it's a curse. But it's really not too bad. Once you get whole sentences, you'll have enough context usually to be able to know whether it's nominative or accusative. And the same is true in the plural. The forms are identical, everybody. Ta erga and ta erga. So you'll notice that because we're pronouncing the short O and the alpha the same, these sound the same, but they are different words. Omicron versus alpha. Okay? All right. Anybody have any questions about these forms we've just looked at?
I think maybe I'm still, so in that first declension, the whole, it going from eta to alpha, it just happens?
Yeah.
That's how it is?
That's just the way it is. Okay. I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go on a little bit. But for now, just realize that no matter which of the alpha or eta stem vowels you start with, everything goes to alpha in the plurals. Okay? Yes? Yeah. So basically, I'm pronouncing this one as ta ergon, and here ta erga. I do try to hold that alpha a little bit longer, but I'm a busy guy. It's hard to spend time lengthening that. But they do sound very, very much similar. Okay. Great. Any other questions? There are some noun rules that Mounce encourages you to memorize. I will mandate that you memorize them. So that may strike fear and terror into your heart. But believe me, you will be thankful that you've memorized these because they're going to be consistently true over and over and over again. So let's look at these. I'll read these and then we'll recite them together. Stems ending in alpha or eta are in the first declension. Stems ending in omicron are in the second, and consonantal stems are in the third. What's the important word here? Stems. Stems, right? Not words, stems. So let's say this together. So noun rule number 1. Stems ending in alpha or eta are in the first declension. Stems ending in omicron are in the second, and consonantal stems are in the third. Now, we've seen that, haven't we, in our lesson here. Number 2, every neuter word has the same form in the nominative and accusative. Did you see that to be true? Ta ergon, right? Nominative and accusative, singular form was the same. And then ta erga, plural forms were the same. So say that with me. Every neuter word has the same form in the nominative and accusative. And then last, or this is all we'll do for this session. Almost all neuter words end in alpha in the nominative and accusative plural. So did you see that the nominative and accusative plural of ergon did that? Ended with an alpha, right? In fact, that alpha loomed so large that it swallowed up the omicron stem vowel. You didn't even see that omicron anymore. So this is characteristic of neuter words in these cases. You should expect to see them ending in an alpha. All right, very good. So those are the noun rules, and again, you see those in 6.18 in your Mounce chapter. In 6.20, he makes some comments about the article. So let's just reiterate what he says. What do we notice about all the forms of the article? They always match the gender, number, and case of the noun that they modify. If it's the man, it's got to be what gender? Masculine. If it's the woman, it's going to be feminine. Okay? So articles always match the case, gender, number of the noun that they modify. So I will usually abbreviate case, gender, number with C, G, and the number sign. Okay? So articles match the noun in all these ways. And that's why I say the article is your friend. The article can be any gender, can't it? Nouns are only one, but whichever gender that is, it's going to pick up that gendered article, and you'll see that in your vocabulary list. All right. The last thing I guess we could talk about is just looking at 6.27 and 6.28. There, Mounce talks about how sometimes in Greek an article will be used where in English we wouldn't. Jesus, we'll get the article in Greek frequently. Ha Iesus. Do you want to say the Jesus in your translation? Probably not. In English, we almost never use an article with a proper noun, unless you've done something stupendous and wonderful. Then you might be something like the Greg or whatever. But aside from those rather unusual circumstances, we don't articulate proper nouns. At the same time, sometimes in English we might use an article, and Greek will drop one. So all that to say, just because you have an article in Greek doesn't mean you have to use an article in your English translation. Sometimes abstract nouns will be, articular. Articular means there's an article with it, but English won't use one. So like, hey agape, we would just translate that as love, not the love. That just sounds really weird, doesn't it? So let's be careful with that.
Thinking about interpreting it, does it make a difference?
Not necessarily. Although sometimes an article may be used in a situation where an idea has been introduced already, and then the writer wants to make reference to that concept that he's introduced, and then uses the article to draw you backwards towards something that he's activated in the course of speaking. Yeah. Okay. Let's just mention one last thing here. In 6.28, he mentions post-positive words. What does post mean? After. That's right. After. So post means after, and the word positive has to do with the idea of position. So it means placement. Okay? Positive has to do with placement. So words that are post-positive are placed after other words. And what we have in Greek is we have this conjunction, day, which is post-positive. We're going to meet some other conjunctions that are also post-positive. And day could be translated as and. It could introduce a clause that is a little bit contrastive, and you could render it as but. Whatever the case, the day will never occur as the first word of a clause or a sentence. It will always have some word first, and then it will go after that word. Okay? So in English, you're not going to translate your words in the same order as they come in Greek when the day occurs, because the day really should go first in your English translation. So let me just, I'll give you an example here, all right? If we had something like ha Jesus de apen ... How would I translate this? In order to translate it, I'm going to take my post-positive conjunction and I'm going to put it in my English translation first. And Jesus said ... Okay? Don't say Jesus and said. Not good. All right? It'll always go after some element in Greek, but go ahead and move it forward in your English translation and translate it first. Okay? Day will only introduce new sentences or new clauses. It doesn't, like the word and in English. That can be a sentence level conjunction. I went to the bank and I robbed it. I'm not being autobiographical here, by the way. So and joins two sentences. Okay, so that's a sentence level conjunction. It introduces a connector for a new sentence. But I could also say Jack and Jill went up the hill. There the and is joining two nouns, not two clauses, not two sentences. Okay? The day will only join one clause to another clause or a new sentence to another sentence. Day doesn't join adjectives together or nouns together or verbs together. Okay? So just to help you understand the difference between day and kai. Kai can join lots of things, small things and big things. Okay? But day only joins clauses together. So those are really two ways to say and in Greek. Okay? All right, good. Well, we'll stop there.